Welcome back to r/NeighborsFromHell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbors sawed my garage in half after claiming it is on his property." It sounds crazy to say that a building could be sawed in half, right? Right. I did not even know that it was physically possible until my neighbors sawed our garage in half after a disagreement about the boundary line between the two properties. The story goes like this. I have lived in the Boston area all of my life, as I was born and raised here. My childhood home was about 10 minutes outside of Boston in the suburbs, and I had moved out after I married my wonderful wife Lisa. I frequently visited my parents at my childhood home, and after all these years I still kept a friendly relationship with the neighbors, the Johnstons. After my mom passed away a few years ago, my wife and I, along with our only son, visited my dad as much as we could. It was a beautiful house with a big yard and a detached garage, and the thought of my dad being alone in such a big beautiful house made me quite sad. The neighbors also visited him frequently, and everyone in the neighborhood loved my dad. We never had any problems in all my time in the area, especially not from the Johnstons next door. Well, this all changed shortly after my dad passed away. I ended up inheriting the house, and my wife and I moved back into my childhood home with our son. Our relationship with the Johnstons was fine until my dad passed away. I thought this was strange because I had known the Johnstons since I was a child, and even my wife was on a friendly level with them. She had met them several times while we had visited my dad when he was alive, so I was not very sure where the tension was coming from. Well, the tension had only escalated when my son put down a bag of wood chips in the yard, which went over the boundary line between our house and the Johnstons' house. Since my dad had remodeled the home after I moved out and added another small garage, I guessed that this redetermined the boundary line in some way between the two houses. We had made the decision to clean up the yard a bit after we had moved in. My dad kept the house and yard well maintained, but it had been several weeks since his passing, and well, the backyard could have used some love. We had put the wood chips down to clear space so a landscaper truck would have enough room to move around our yard so that we could clean up some of the trees and bushes that had been overgrowing in the last several weeks. Well, the Johnstons did not like this because shortly after they had patted a wood stake in the ground where the wood chips had been placed. It was like they were marking the edge of their property, and our suspicions of this were confirmed when they came over to talk to us about it. Mr. Johnston had told us, "Come get your stuff out of our yard. This is our property." I was honestly taken back by this because as far as I knew, the wood chips were not crossing the property line. We did not have any formal fence around either property, so this only confused things even more. Besides that, even if we were crossing boundary lines, was a couple of bags of wood chips really that big of a deal? I had never heard of the Johnstons acting this way when my father was alive, and I had also never experienced it myself. They were known to be quite friendly neighbors. Well, this ended up getting blown out of proportion, and the Johnstons brought in official land surveyors to determine where the official property lines laid. Well, this ended up not working out in our favor, which I was not too happy about. The land surveyors had determined that the property line split up right smack dab in the middle of the new garage. This meant that technically our garage was overhanging their boundary line. My first question was, if this was the case, how did someone not catch it while the garage was being added? Did they just put the garage there and not question it? But I also could not help but wonder why now all of a sudden this was a problem. I could tell that the Johnstons, Mr. J in particular, was satisfied that the part of the garage was past our property line. The garage had been there for at least 5 years, and I wondered why now it was a problem. I can't say enough how much they had seemed to love my dad, so taking strikes against his beloved property now seemed really odd. Well, things got even more odd after this discovery. A couple days later I was at work and my wife was out with her sister while my son was at school. This meant that there was no one home for most of the day. My neighbor saw this to his advantage and sawed my garage in half. Yes, you read that right. My neighbor sawed our garage in half. By the way guys, just as you can see on the thumbnail. Upon investigation, it turns out that Mr. Johnston used his half construction skills to take a sawzall to our garage and sawed down the half that was technically on his property. He then took all the remains of the garage and dumped it in our yard, creating a giant mess all over the work we had done. My first reaction was, of course, to call the police and file a report. I mean, I knew tensions had been high between us over his property line dispute, but I did not think it would go this far. Hell, I did not even know it was possible to saw a garage in half. After this, my wife and I had refused to talk to the Johnstons out of fear of safety for our family. If the guy could saw a garage in half, what else could he do? We then gathered enough information and evidence, we have security cameras, and got Mr. Johnston in the act and filed a lawsuit against our neighbors in the Supreme Court. Luckily, my wife and I had a decent income and were able to afford some really good lawyers. However, the Johnstons surprised me yet again as they decided to represent themselves. In court, Mr. Johnston described us as awful neighbors who revved our car engines in the middle of the night and were rude to everyone else in the neighborhood. This was obviously not true. We were nice people and we were also respectful to everyone in the neighborhood, including the Johnstons. This did not work out for them because in the end, the Johnstons had to pay us $150,000 for the mess they had caused. The money would replace our garage and repair any of the grass and ground around it. It would also cover the costs of removing all of the debris from our yard and replacing items that were in our garage that were damaged in the dispute, such as our washer and dryer. The judge also ordered that the Johnstons were not allowed to step on our property for any reason and even sent out several more land surveyors so that the court could determine where the property line was. While the surveyors the Johnstons had hired had set the property line in their favor, the judge ruled that the property line had never actually changed, meaning that our garage was never actually overhanging their yard. The whole situation is still wild to me, and till this day I still don't know why the wood chips caused such a big mess. And wow, ripe stars, I gotta say, if I was in OP's shoes, I would probably not want to live there anymore. Because just as OP said, if a neighbor is willing or able to saw your entire garage in half, you would not even want to think about what he could do to you. If you would be in OP's shoes, would you still want to live there? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video if you enjoy the neighbor stories. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled, Take advantage of hundreds of people, have fun figuring out where that smell is coming from. So, a few years back, my brother-in-law, BIL, young guy in his early 30s, was diagnosed with cancer. Our family is and was pretty close and everyone took it fairly hard. At the time I also happened to be looking for a new place to live. Well, my brother-in-law and sister have a few rental properties and were looking at buying another one. They asked if I would be willing to rent it if they did. Being a single female in my early 20s, I stressed to them I probably couldn't afford it, but if it was in my price range, of course I would, but I also asked them if they should really be focusing on that right now. Maybe you should take care of brother-in-law's cancer and worry about your real estate when he is better. Anyways, you cannot tell them what to do at all and they bought a house anyways. Well, they told me I could rent the basement suite for less than my maximum price because they know I will take care of it. I agree and we go about things. Well, as I am moving in, they bring me a lease contract to sign, but the rent is over $200 more than what I had told them my max price was. I questioned them about it, with my crap half moved in naturally, and they kind of BS'd me by saying things like, "Oh, we thought it would be okay," and "I guess we forgot to factor in ABC." Okay, I think to myself, but arguing with your brother-in-law that has cancer is extremely difficult, so I reluctantly sign and accept my lack of social life due to my inflated rent. Fast forward to last year, my brother-in-law is getting significantly worse and given under 3 months to live. I made the trip to the hospital 1.5 hours away several times, as much as I could afford, and often caught rides up there as well, and he looked bad. As in, I didn't think he would make it another month bad. In Canada, where we live, healthcare only does so much and basically told him there was nothing left they could do for him. Well, I did some research and found a specialized cancer treatment center in the States that gave him a shot at beating it. I asked my sister to make a few calls, knowing more than I did about his specific situation, and see if they could take him. She told me they would, but it was far too expensive. I asked how much and she said about $75,000. I immediately got together with friends and family about starting to raise some money. I had also found out that they did not have life insurance with 2 small children and that they would lose everything when brother-in-law died. Essentially, they were really screwed. Now, I am not the type of person to hold events or generally just be social at all. I actually have mild social anxiety and dropped out of college because of it, but I somehow managed to rally together the entire community. A friend started them a GoFundMe page and gave my sister control. My sister also started a second one on You Caring, which I guess is a website. I found a place that would give us 200 seats for free in a bar for a fundraiser in which we could sell tickets too. Unfortunately, it was around Christmas time and the only date they had available was a last-minute cancellation about a week and a half away. Now, I don't know if any of you have thrown any type of event, but that's not enough time to organize something like this. Somehow, and don't ask me how because it was such a blur and I don't think I slept at all, I managed to organize hundreds of people, find a band, sell all of our tickets, collect auction donations and create games, raffles, etc. to bring in more money, get several large corporations to donate money/time/advertising, find decorations, create a slideshow and get a ton of personal donations, over $5,000, to be presented to the family because they were going through a tough time, all while working a full-time job. While planning, I became extremely concerned with the legalities and expressed that in depth to my team. All auction items must be watched at all times, all money must be tracked, all paperwork copied and accounted for, etc. I also told my sister to not worry about a thing, just worry about taking care of brother-in-law. While she not only helped by completely forgetting to do everything she insisted on doing, but talking down to me and ignoring all of the important things I was trying to express. She was actually a huge bitch the entire time. I tried to shake it off, assuming she was just stressed. A few days before the fundraiser, I tried to get the treatment center info from my sister for my speech, but she kept blowing me off, so I called the center myself. The totals that my sister was asking was completely different than what the girl on the phone told me. At the end of the conversation, the girl says, "So you are brother-in-law's sister?" That's so weird. His wife called the other day and did not seem nearly as interested in the payment options as you are. Around the same time, I noticed my sister has changed the fundraising goals from $70,000 to $175,000. I was far too busy to give it much thought at this point though. So the day of the fundraiser, my sister walks in and I say, genuinely pleased to see her, "Oh, awesome, you made it. Have you decided if you want to be involved at all?" She scowls and says, "I don't even want to be here." I'm a pretty ballsy person and any other day I would have promptly punched her in the face and walked out, but this was for my brother-in-law, so I smiled and said, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that." "Why don't you have a seat, my dad, and just relax, put all your food and drink on my bill and I will take care of it. We have got you a ride home if you want a drink and I will take care of everything else for you. I love ya." As MC, host and the main organizer of everything, I was running around like a chicken, either my head cut off the whole night. The only times I saw my sister was sitting on other guys' laps, complaining about her husband, bidding on auction items, how damn inappropriate, or telling her friends that I'm a cow. She also was complaining to my friends, and had I known that at the time, I would have called it off right then and there. You don't F with my friends who have supported not only me, but you through this. About halfway through the event, one of my team had approached me telling me a gift card had gone missing. Damn, that's all on me. I quickly rallied everyone to help, but my sister had quickly come over and told everyone it was taken care of. I forgot about it until my friend that donated that gift certificate showed up and asked about it. I had no answer, and sister was effectively evading me all night. The next day, since the fundraiser ended up running until after 2 AM, I called around to everyone except my sister looking for the gift card. I put about 9 people's stories together to figure out what happened. What happened was the following. My sister stole the damn gift card for herself from her dying husband's fundraiser. Then she blamed everything on me and made a bunch of wild false accusations. Basically, I got numerous phone calls, texts, emails and Facebook messages to the point that I had to shut my phone off and deactivate my Facebook, telling me what an awful person I am and how could I steal something from brother-in-law's fundraiser and blame it on my poor sister. What? What? That's good for my depression and anxiety, so I called my mom bawling, telling her I wanted to die and I don't understand. She yelled at me and told me to apologize to my sister. Screw that, I didn't speak to anyone in my family for over 9 months. I had concrete evidence proving she did it. I could have gotten her charged. I spent my entire vacation fund on them and did not even get a damn thank you. My theory that I pieced together a few weeks after is that my sister expected brother-in-law to die before we could raise the money to send him for treatment, leaving her with a nice little chunk of money to take care of her stupidly expensive lifestyle. 3 very expensive vehicles, 4 houses, property on a lake, a holiday trailer, quad boat, etc. Well damn, I don't do anything half-assed. Within a few days we had raised half the money and by the end he had enough to go before she changed the total. Out of the 70,000 or so raised, I single-handedly raised over $50,000. Also, who leaves their dying husband as home to look after their 2 small children under 5 to go to Mexico? A week after the fundraiser. I decide to let herself shoot herself in the foot and just move out of the house they owned ASAP. This happened to coincide with their cross-Canada trip and they tried to sue me. They had no grounds to do so and I actually ended up with $50 from them. But now I am getting a little revenge. I could not bring myself to tell the entire world what they did, though I easily could have, but I did decide to screw with them. While I lived in the rental, I did a bunch of work on it for them for free, so there was plenty of extra paint, drywall, etc. around. I looked up the most common and troubling pests in our area and how to attract them. Then I went shopping. The list included fish heads, shrimp, pest attractants, clearance meat, etc. I left the place immaculate except for the rotting food in the walls. Yep, I punched a hole in the wall, filled it up in several places, drywalled, mudded and taped and painted over it. I hear the place is unrentable now and going through renovations. Edit, for those asking, my brother-in-law is still alive, though I have heard his health is declining. So as far as I know, things change quickly around here and I don't really care enough to keep up. He has not been sent to the treatment center that we all fundraised for. They say that they cannot afford it, which is a lie. I know all the numbers of the fundraiser and how much it was to send him there. They have not sold a thing they own, but he is supposedly attending treatment a province over. They say that the money is going towards that, but the treatment itself is actually free. I believe they have used some of the money to fly him over for treatment. That is all I really know. And ripe stars, I gotta say, after this story, I am sort of speechless. For me, it is just absolutely impossible to understand how someone could value money. Even worse, when someone you know holds a fundraiser for your husband and then you steal the money that people donated. That is really the lowest of the low I have ever heard of. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.